ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ
ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
I don't know, my voice is still very low. Can you hear me with that low voice? मैं हर हर नाम तार सोई. That's a befitting Shabad. ज्यों भावे त्यों राख मेरे साया, मैं तुझ पे अवर न कोई. That was the slogan, that was the spirit of the Sikhs who gave their lives. So Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa is also one of that massacre of the Sikhs, out of many massacres that happened during the historical period. Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa is one of them, and I thought this is rightful to sing that great Shabad, which is telling that I have nobody else to fall back upon. I am at your mercy. So whatever you want us to do, we will do, and in whatever way you want to protect us, protect us. Now, Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa, if I have to narrate, it may last only 10 minutes or so. But I have prepared some background so that I stay within the boundary, at the same time give you a background of what really happened, what transpired, why did Sikhs do what they did at that time. So that's why it is in writing. Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa, first of all, means a great Holocaust. The word Holocaust came into existence during World War II, when Hitler of Germany massacred 6 million European Jews. And in Sikh history, there have been 3 such massacres, 3 such killings. First Holocaust, known as Chota Ghalughaaraa, happened in June of 1746. So this month, June, is also so significant, so many times, and it looks all the Ghalughaaras happened during this time. June of 84 also. June 1746, nearly about 10,000 Sikhs were massacred, tortured and killed. And we call it Chota Ghalughaaraa in comparison to the Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa, which happened in the history. So the second Ghalughaaraa happened on February of 1762, about 16 years after the first Ghalughaaraa, when half of the Sikh population was wiped out. At that time, there were only 100,000 Sikhs, and 50,000 were massacred. Some say it was 50,000, whereas others say about 30,000. It's very close figure. A person who wrote the history in the 20th century, Ratan Singh Pangu by the name of the Granth was Prachin Panth Prakash, and in that he says, लोग कहें सिख 1 लाख सारा, 50 बच्चों और सब गयो मारा. So these are the beautiful lines. He says there were total of 100,000 Sikhs, and only 50,000 were saved. पिता हमारे 30 बताए. He said my father was also involved in massacre, and he said that only 30,000 got killed. रहे सो मर और बचकर आए, पिता चाचे दोए हम थे साथ, उनते सुन हम आखी बात. My uncle and my father, they were together told me this story, the first-hand information which I am telling you, and that's what he wrote in Pracheen Panth Prakash. As you all know about the third Ghalughaaraa, which I think some of you have actually seen and some were not even born, in 84. The third Ghalughaaraa, that's the greatest Ghalughaaraa that happened from June to November of 1984, when nearly 200,000 Sikhs were massacred. And those people who are our well-wishers at that present time, the present government of India, headed by Mr. Modi, his party chief at that time was Balraj Madhok. I don't know, most of you may not have heard his name. He was a professor at Camp College, Delhi. Professor Balraj Madhok, and that's what he said at that time. I just wanted to, I am not going to elaborate on it because we are concentrating on the Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa only, but let me tell you the thinking of BJP. But the false notion had not only persisted but were often shown off by some Sikhs in day-to-day life. Aftermath of Mrs. Gandhi's assassination has changed the situation. Many Sikhs have been forced to shed their ego and exaggerated sense of self-esteem and behave as normal men. He said that's why we did what we did in 84. So this person is a prominent leader of Jan Sangh or BJP who held various offices in the party, and this is written in the Punjab Problem book published, and where it has Muslim connections, page 131 for your information. Now let's get back to the Ghalughaaras that happened in the past. From 1748 to 1761, that's about 13 years' time, Ahmad Shah Abdali attacked Punjab 5 times. Ahmad Shah Abdali is coming from the Afghanistan area. The 5th attack was on Marathas, who was ruling the most of the India, when he defeated them in the 3rd Battle of Panipat on January 1761. He was returning to Afghanistan after appointing Mirza Khan as governor of Punjab in 1761. According to Brownie, a historian, his army was crossing river Satluj when the Sikhs attacked them and snatched away most of the material wealth they took away from India. The Sikhs had the courage to do that at that time. Sikhs followed Abdali up to Attock. Attock is the past northwest frontier, the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Just to give you an idea, where actually it is. So it is on the other side of Pakistan. One border with Pakistan that India has is near Amritsar, Atari border, and then there is the border with Afghanistan of Pakistan is near Attock in Peshawar. So Sikhs followed Abdali up to Attock and on their way back surrounded Lahore. Lahore was their territory, but Sikhs took possession of Lahore for temporarily. Sardar Jassa Singh Ahluwalia was the leader at that time. He came to know that Abdali has taken away 2200 young Hindu girls for their harem. So he followed him. His army took them away from him. As soon as he saw them boarding the boats to cross Jhelum River. Jhelum is right now this river is in Pakistan, and that river, when they were crossing to go back to Afghanistan area, the Sikhs attacked them and took possession of all the 2200 women that were taken. Jassa Singh took the responsibility of returning them to their parents. And the parents were all in Maharashtra. And Maharashtra area is, for your information, is in the Bombay area. It's quite far away from the Delhi area and Punjab area. So about 1,000 miles. No, not thousands. I think it's a couple of thousand miles from Delhi. Sikhs occupied Lahore and bestowed the title of Sultan-ul-Qaum on Sardar Jassa Singh Ahluwalia. At that time, he was the leader. I think all of you, I just want to remind you that Jassa Singh Ahluwalia was the leader of all the Bara missiles. So when there were Bara missiles, 12 missiles were under the domination, under the umbrella of Dal Khalsa. And Dal Khalsa was originally, the leader of the Dal Khalsa was Nawab Kapoor Singh. Later on, Jassa Singh Ahluwalia became the leader. And when they occupied Lahore, this is the first time they occupied Lahore, and they decided to have their own coins, and on which it was written, Dego Tego Fateh, Nusrat Bedrang, Yaftaz Nanak Guru Gobind Singh. And that inscription was fantastic. It is saying that we learned the Deg and Teg, the combination, which is an inseparable combination of Deg and Teg, from our first Guru to the last Guru, Guru Nanak to Guru Gobind Singh. On October 27, 1761, the Diwali day, Sarbat Khalsa was held at Sri Akal Takht Sahib, Amritsar, in which a resolution to punish Akal Das of Jandiala and his associates who were responsible for the following events were passed. So this was a Sarbat Khalsa, one of the rare Sarbat Khalsa that was held in Amritsar Sahib, just to punish a person who has done too much damage to the Sikhs. And what he did is this, I will narrate these three things. One is getting Bhai Sukha Singh arrested and killed in 1753. Sukha Singh, all of you, do you know who Sukha Singh is? None of you know, right? Anybody knows Mehtab Singh? Sukha Singh, Mehtab Singh were together when they attacked on Masarangarh. And Masarangarh was a person who was occupying Harmandir Sahib, and he has leveled Harmandir Sahib completely. And these are the two Sikhs who took care of him. So this person was an informer, Akal Das. He informed the Mughal government that Sukha Singh is here, so just arrest him and kill him. And that's what they did. Then attacking the village Mira Kotia. Mira Kot is their village, and getting the family of Bhai Mehtab Singh killed. Bhai Mehtab Singh's family was also killed, and Bhai Mehtab Singh and Sukha Singh were together, they were buddies. And Mehtab Singh is also a grandfather of Prachin Prakash writer Ratan Singh Pangu. I just wanted to tell you that how these people are related, and so most of the stories that they heard are so genuine because it is within the family, and they were, some of the stories are saved in their own homes, so from where they got all this information. The third thing he did was getting Bhai Taru Singh arrested and killed in 1745. Bhai Taru Singh also, all of you I think know, because Bhai Taru Singh Khopdi Luai, he was arrested because he was such a devoted Sikh that was reported by Akal Das to the Mughal government that this person is a fundamentalist Sikh. And so these three charges were leveled at the Sarbat Khalsa, and they decided that we should take care of Akal Das. So Akal Das made Abdali aware of the activities and power of the Khalsa and requested him to protect him. Abdali was so mad at the Sikhs that he made a vow to finish them from the face of the earth. It was similar to the order of Bahadur Shah that were given in 1710 when Bahadur Shah took over. Bahadur Shah is the son of Aurangzeb, who took over right after Aurangzeb's dynasty finished.
I have a question. So you're saying the words "take care of," you're using the word "punish." What exactly was the Gurmat that they passed? Because I think it's important to note. So what Khalsa happened? Gur Sikhs are together. They're doing Ardas and they're passing Gurmat. What was the? I mean, I think you're using more polite terms or something.
The matter was that he should be suitably punished. He should be, the charges are leveled against him, and he should be brought in before the Sikhs, and they should put a
But we're talking about
proper
actually
punishment to him.
Kidnapping an official and bringing him in front of Sikh. Correct?
Yeah, because there was no law and order at that time.
Right.
So the Sikhs wanted to bring to the court of the Sikhs. Sikhs are normally used to have their own court because they didn't find any justice in the Mughal court.
Which is kind of hard for us to imagine
Yeah.
living in this kind of country, but this is Sikhs, when we say Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, they really look at themselves as sovereign, and if there's no justice in the government they live under, they will bring their own justice.
Yeah, they will bring their own justice. This is, but at that time, that was the law. That was the way the things were. A person who was might was right, and so it was very hard to manage because they did go to the courts, to the Mughal courts. Sikhs were tried at the Mughal courts, but there was hardly any justice. So that's why.
What was the relationship between, like, the position of Masarangar and Abdali?
Masarangar was assigned the duty of taking possession of the Harmandir Sahib. So he did whatever he wanted to do. At that time, they used to say, "Here, you take care of Harmandir Sahib, do whatever you want." So he started doing, it was dances of the prostitutes and all kinds of defamation of Harmandir Sahib that was done at that time.
So it's not like, because I was wondering if Abdali had assigned particular people to particular regions and Masarangar had that region that included Harmandir Sahib.
Right.
But I think it's more like a warlord.
More like a what?
Like a warlord that we see, like, you know, in Iraq, in Afghanistan.
Because Abdali wasn't actually in charge of the governments. He came back and forth to plunder,
Yeah,
right? Like, who was in charge of the? It's after Bahadur Shah's time. Ahmad Shah Abdali is after Bahadur Shah's time.
Yeah, Ahmad Shah
Right.
Abdali, yeah, after Bahadur Shah.
So who is like the quote-unquote emperor
Then
of India at the
He
time?
used to assign governors for, like Zakaria Khan, Farooq Seer. All these governors were appointed. It was Abdali's government, but you know they were assigning it. It's like colonization,
Okay.
just like the British colonized it and made governor generals or viceroys in India. India was ruled by viceroys. You know, prime minister was not ruling the country. Prime minister of England was not ruling the country, but ruling through the viceroys. That's the way the British did, and so was Abdali. Abdali attacked, plundered so many times, took possession, but since he was not physically present, then some other people used to attack it, just like Marathas used to attack. Marathas were very, very strong at that time, people from Maharashtra, and they took over the possession. So many things were happening at that time. Let's go where we were. Okay. Yeah, at that time, Mirza Khan was the governor of Punjab. So, Abdali's representative. So Sikhs not only defeated Mirza Khan of Punjab, but also killed him in the battlefield. So it was a fight in which he got killed. Abdali immediately sent General Nuruddin Bamzai to Punjab. That's what your question was, you know, who these people were. So they keep on coming. And most prominent one I just named, Farooq Seer and Zakaria Khan, who massacred the Sikhs a lot. He barely crossed the river Chenab when the Sikhs under Charat Singh Sukarchakia. Now Charat Singh Sukarchakia, I purposely wrote his name here because later on he becomes very prominent because he is the father of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So, and the head of the Sukarchakia missile. So he barely crossed the Chenab when the Sikhs under Charat Singh Sukarchakia attacked him. Nuruddin, the General Nuruddin, ran away and took shelter in Sialkot fort. Sikhs surrounded the fort. Nuruddin slipped away at night in the valleys of Jammu, and the Afghan army surrendered to the Sikhs. So this is another surrender that happened at that time. When the new governor, then another governor was appointed, and his name was Ubaid Khan of Lahore. He heard about this. He attacked the Sikhs. Sikhs in his army joined their Sikh brothers. See, Sikhs used to serve even the Mughal army, and that's Sikhs used to work for Mughals too. The question that you were asking, you know, it is not that, you know, Sikhs were not, Sarkari Sikhs were also there. There were some Sikhs who used to work, but most of the Sikhs, whether they were working for the government or not working for the government or working against the government, they were very staunch Sikhs. They still loved their religion. And one such Sarkari Sikh was Subheg Singh. And you have heard his name, Subheg Singh and his son Shahbaz Singh. So, well, this will also come in this one. So Ubaid Khan ran away after leaving all his artillery and weapons. So this thing happened one after the other, the generals ran away. Khwaja Mirza Khan, General Nuruddin, and Ubaid Khan, one after the other. In the month of January of 1762, Sikhs surrounded Jandiala. Now Jandiala, I mentioned to you, it is Akaldas village. So Sikhs surrounded that village, the town of Akaldas. He appealed to the Abdali to rescue him. The ruler of Sarhan, Zain Khan, assured Abdali that his army will not let the Sikhs advance any further until the time of his arrival. So Zain Khan was joined with Nawab of Maler Kotla, whose name was Bhikhan Khan. Sikhs were planning to drop their children, women, and elders at a safe place before facing the enemy in the battlefield, when the news came that Abdali reached Lahore with his army on 1762. They were all traveling with families, so they wanted to leave them at a safe place so that they can have a good combat with the Afghani army. As soon as the Abdali comes, his forces come, they should be able to face him properly. But with the children and the women, it's very hard to face. So, but that didn't happen. Abdali reached before time, before their estimated time. So Sikhs were not expecting Abdali's arrival from Afghanistan so soon. Upon hearing this news, Sikhs decided to move forward while protecting their children, women, and elders. So this is very, very unique battle that happened. The battleground warmed up on the morning of February 5th, 1762. Zain Khan's army consisted of 20,000 men, which was joined by Abdali's army consisted of 30,000 men. Sardar Jassa Singh Ahluwalia and Sardar Charat Singh Sukarchakia commanded the Sikhs to encircle the elders, women and children and move forward towards Barnala in a circular motion while protecting them exactly in the same manner as the hen protects its offspring. That's what is written in the history, so I quoted it the same way. That just like the hen spreads the wings and protects the children, same way Sikhs protected their women folks and children and elders. This is how it is written in the literature. Tur tur laro or lar lar tudo, वहीर बचावन खातर अड़ो, जिम कर कुकड़ी बच्चन छपावे, फैलाए पंख तोए तरफ रखावे, इम खालसे ने बहीर छपायो, जो बच रहो सो आगे लगायो. Any person who was left was at the forefront. So at this point, Sikhs were at Kuprahida, that's the name of the place. That was hardly about 7 miles from Maler Kotla. Army men on both sides were extremely thirsty and very tired. Sikhs reached Barnala that evening, whereas the Abdali's army was in a hurry to go back, because they used to come just to plunder. They never wanted to face the Sikhs. They never wanted to fight. So this is the way it is written in the history. Ghode mard pyase bhaye, sabhan ke mukh sukh sugaye. They were so thirsty that their mouths were dry. Raste mein jal hath na aayo, jo aayo so piyan kab paayo. He said there was no water that they could find on the way, but even if they saw the water, they saw the enemy first. So they failed to drink the water if they found the water. So in a history book written in Persian language that is called Qissai Thomas-e Maskeen, this was written by Thomas Khan, and Thomas Khan talks about the bravery and high spirit of the Sikhs and predicts the Sikh Raj soon. His estimate was 25,000 Sikhs gave their lives, whereas Ratan Singh Bhangu's father, Bhai Mehtab Singh, estimates 30,000. It is said that half of the Sikh population got wiped out in this massacre when they were trying to save the children and the women. Sardar Jassa Singh Ahluwalia and Sardar Charat Singh, who commanded the Sikhs, had suffered 22 and 19 wounds respectively, and they were still alive. In this Ghalughaaraa, Sikhs lost Shri Guru Granth Sahib, that was scribed by Mani Singh and dictated by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. Although its copies were available everywhere, this is the typical Damdami beer. That's what is written in some of the history books very surely. And hardly 4 months have passed when Sikhs attacked Sirhind and occupied Lahore in 1762. So even after losing so many Sikhs, they rose within 4 months and occupied Lahore. This is what Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa is. Now, any questions?
Uncle, do you remember what resources you used for all the facts, like which books and resources other than Ratan Singh Bhangu?
Ratan Singh Bhangu is the most authentic person, but there are other historians. Muhammad Latif, America, is the Muslim historian who has written a very detailed account. But he also wrote this during the British times. He was not an older historian. And this person is very famous, Thomas Khan, who has written specifically about this. Who else is there? एक और किताब it's called Akhbar-e Darbar-e Mohalla. That also is the news items written by the Darbar, and those are there too. Haan ji.
Thomas Khan was during British period?
No, ji, Thomas Khan was during this period. It is 1700, 1800. British actually came in 1800.
1830.
Yeah. And Sikh Raj was taken by them in 1850. Something like that. British were setting their foot in India during Aurangzeb's time. They started, it was the East India Company at that time, but later on the British. Any other question, any other thought?
I mean, I think it's interesting that you're talking about the same time period that the United States of America was kind of forming. This is George Washington's time, this is Thomas Jefferson's time.
Yeah.
It's all around those years. And then a lot of things are happening, and the British are here, America was fighting against the British. And from what I understand, British, a lot of the technology on how to make the weapons that they were learning from the
British.
The British were learning from the fights that they had in India against the Mughals, and that they were using that technology and that information and using it here in America against the Americans and things like that. So it's kind of, all of this is all connected, it's all happening at the same time. So I think that's an interesting way to keep the perspective on what's happening in the world.
But it's very strange, at that time, all these papers in the United States, whether they carried the news or not, this is the thing which one has to explore and find out. All these newspapers should have some kind of news. Just like, I came to know about Guru Arjan Dev Ji's Shahidi. There was a news in the Portugal Times about how Guru Arjan Dev Ji was martyred. Small news, but significant.
So Uncle G, when they decided to encircle the children and women and elderly, is it because the attack was already coming, or this is the way that they were also advancing towards the battlefield? Like, I guess I'm not understanding why there wasn't the time to say, you go and stay in this village, or send them off to this village.
Because transportation was not that fast at that time. Now to leave the children, they have to still go through the area which is still dominated by the enemy.
Right,
And,
so I guess that's what I'm asking. It's not like they were meeting at a battlefield. The enemy, Abdali and his forces were coming this way.
Right. So there was
Before
Zain
these-
Khan of Sarhand, that's what I mentioned. Zain Khan of Sarhand, he wanted to keep them occupied, keep his army occupied with the Sikhs, with the Sikh army. Let us call Sikh army, and till Abdali's forces come, which is about 30,000 people, and they were thinking that it will take them a week to come, but they came very fast. Perhaps they were stationed at the border or somehow, and so it was an unexpected coming of the Abdali forces.
So they were already fighting before the Abdali forces got there.
They were not fighting. The
So,
Abdali,
like, I guess my
Abdali
They were
question
fighting
is-
with that. I think he was saying that they were engaged with a smaller army. Who
Yeah,
was trying
engaged
to
with-
occupy them until Abdali came with 30,000 people.
Or keep them in check at least.
Right. Or at
Yeah,
least-
even the check,
Imagine
because he
even
promised
though
that, I will keep them occupied, keep them in check till you arrive. And those are also 20,000 people, because that's what it says. The 20,000 people, and so they are waiting for a larger force to attack them and finish the Sikhs.
But I understand what she's saying too, then, okay, let's say
Why
forces are coming,
advance? Why not
here's
go
the
backwards?
six, here's the forces coming. Why not send everybody, all the women, children, this way, some
Backwards.
way? Why set up camp to protect them instead of just, is there any reason for
Think
that? Or is it-
logistically,
Because
like
on the
moving
way there are
50,000
other
people
forces.
is not an easy, and when small army is keeping an eye, they'll keep an eye where you are going to take children, and they know that you have children and kids at that time. And even if 2,000, 3,000 people move this way or that way, they'll
They're
have,
watching.
the Sikh soldiers are watching where are they going, how Sikhs are
It's not like
spreading.
any place around them was friendly either. If they took them to some village, they would rat them out pretty soon.
And Malerkotla is mostly plains, it's not a hilly area or something where usually Sikhs used to be in hills and they would
Right.
come down and maybe in jungles at that time. But I think it was a big number which,
And another thing is the children.
I guess 'cause it's different. I guess my confusion is that it sounds like the Sikhs were trapped, not that they were advancing.
It's kind of trap. Because the thing is, they already are in a Muslim army area. It's a Mughal army area. Because they are keeping track of them, they just cannot fight with them thoroughly. That's why they wanted Abdali to help.
But it started because the Sikhs had gone to Jandiala, you said?
Jandiala.
Jandiala. So they went there in preparation for battle.
Yes.
Six did. So why, I guess, I'm just to play the devil's advocate, why
Well,
didn't they
Jandiala
leave
was-
the family before they went to Jandiala? Like, the army came because the Sikhs advanced first. I guess that's all I'm confused
where,
about.
Where were they? What was the mission to take everybody and go?
To go get a Kalda. Like, the plan was to go get
Yeah,
this
so
guy.
why would you take
Why did they take the
everybody
entire
and-
army and all of their families to go get this one guy? Because taking the 30,000 Sikhs there is what drew
It drew the army.
the army from Afghanistan.
All of them have not gone. It means some people may have gone. They still kept track of all the families. They need to protect the families as well as.
Sure.
So it is not that the whole group was moving together. They may have assigned the territories. They may have assigned a couple of territories, which is the details are not given in the history. But the thing is, they to protect the families, they kept them together in the center. Just like somebody was explaining to me that you have families in the center, and around that were the men, and another circle with the men, so that the families are just protected without even protecting them solidly. They are in the center, so they get protection of their own men.
So I'm guessing that may just been how they had to move.
Right.
They may have been forced to take everybody with them anytime they did something like that.
What strategy they use, we don't know.
Yeah.
One more thing is like getting congregated in this big number. Sikhs might be thinking that and local there was no local big army which can be a threat to them only until Abdali will come in with his men. So even the 20,000 soldiers from the local governor, that's not a threat to them. So I think that they might have got together, but only when the message came that Abdali, and they sent the message that Sikhs are all together. It's a good time to butcher them.
Right.
And I think at that time things changed so quickly, and it's no time for them to leave.
And there were many Sikhs who may not be in the battlefield. They may be in the villages. But the Sikhs were searched on the villages and then killed. I don't think 100,000 Sikhs were right in the battlefield. That's another thing.
We don't know how large that group was then, right?
Well, they are talking about the total population was 100,000.
Right.
That doesn't mean everybody was engaged in the war or the battle. So those details, I think that need to be found out. There is one person, not about this, but there was one person who has written the strategy in the battlefield of Guru Gobind Singh, and that's a very nice way of how he defended Anandpur Ladai, then Chamkaur di Ladai, and all that, and he goes into detail that how Guru Sahib would have done it. I think that's also his imagination rather than a fact. How can
Yeah, I don't know how you can reconstruct.
reconstruct the thing? Because somebody has to be in the battlefield in order to construct it, or a right now in these days we have historians in the battlefield. We have people who just write what is happening, how the people are fighting. Even the new wars, the big war that happened between India and Pakistan, when Sikhs surrendered 98,000 soldiers of the Pakistan. Details are not known to many people, but I have come across some soldiers who are telling the story that this is what happened when where I was stationed, and then the other soldier tells another story. So it's very hard to know what type of strategy they used. one of the strategy that is written in the history, I mentioned to you, that it's about how a hen protects their offsprings, and that's the way Sikhs protected their children and women. So they just gave one indication and told in small words much bigger strategy.
Do you have any sense of how they communicated plans within this group of six? I mean, and a telephone to call the next general,
Yeah.
like stationed a couple miles away. I mean, do we have any sense of how they communicated? Did they have runners or horsemen that were, like taking?
I know Paul Virgie recently read that book that you were talking about, that the strategies of Guru Nanak Singh Ji. I wonder, like in that book, it talks about it. Like maybe Paul Virgie remembers or something, because they probably close enough to that time that they would maybe be following the
Similar
same.
pattern.
Actually, I read that too. It doesn't really talk
Oh, it doesn't go
about specifically like what their communication
Yeah, I mean, it would be-
It's more about what their actual war strategy
Right.
is, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
That is that.
Does he
would
talk
be-
about how he built this knowledge of coming up with that book? Like what is he
What did
referencing?
he research?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a little reference. There's
some small
That's
black book Uncle has in his library.
what's it called?
It's a Hindu journal or colonel who has written.
He did like his. He did
Very
it's
nicely.
almost like a thesis on, because he's like in the military. It's almost like a thesis on the general. So he analyzed the women's war strategy. It might even be war strategies of the women.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, kind of what strategy. But he wrote how this war was fought, how this battle was fought. He has imagined, or he has some way of saying it, because I think it cannot be a true story. But I think his guesswork.
Wait, what are you saying? You're saying it's not a true story?
It
You're
may
saying
not-
because he has
It
to
may not
put-
be exactly
It
true.
may not be exactly true, but he's putting pieces of the puzzle together and
Yeah.
filling in the story.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I feel.
Is there any memorial for this Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa in India, or there is Gurdwara there, or?
Well, do we have it? I don't think we have it. But I think that place where it happened, Kupari Rahida, there is some sort of, I haven't been there, but there should be some place like that. Hanji?
I have like 3 questions. So, one is like you talked about, like you made mention of like Baitaru Singh, and a couple of other like Shahidis who we know like the valor of their stories about. Is there any story? Shabeg Singh, Shabaz Singh. Are there any like stories of Sukha Singh, Mehtab Singh?
Yeah.
Which one is it? And maybe I
The ones who
forget.
killed Masaram, but like he.
Yeah, I know he killed Masaram, but what about their
Oh, their lives.
Shahidi or their lives? Like we know about Baitaru Singh, we know about Shabeg Shabaz Singh. I was just wondering.
They're the ones who went to Harmandir Sahib with the teaching
How
about
they were
legacy
like-
Borishta they should
Yeah.
be.
They came all the way from Rajasthan.
Damdam sir.
What was the general reaction of other people to this Ghalughaaraa? Like we saw what happened in '84, how people had misinformation and people didn't really know what to think. But we also know in those days, like Sahibzade were shaheed, and people were horrified. They thought it was kind of extreme that they were executed this way, and people's sentiments were turning against. So we know that there was some sympathy for Sikhs even amongst Muslims. When this Vaadaa Ghalughaaraa happens, do we know anything about the reaction of the population in general? Were they supportive of the massacre, or were they horrified by it?
Well, the Muslim population, I don't know, can you qualify it, but there was some sympathy by the Muslims. We always found good good Muslims among the bad Muslims. Because it was not general Muslim population doing it. It is just the rulers doing it. That's the thing.
Do we know why the Sikhs decided on Akuldas? Is that his name? Akuldas? Why did they pick him over all the people that had done many things to the Sikhs? What was unique about him that they had a whole Sarbat Khalsa that decided to go after this guy?
Well, Akuldas, because he supposed to be helping the Sikhs rather than helping the Muslims.
It's a betrayal, right?
Betrayal.
Was he like a Sikh by birth or something? Why was he the
Well,
betrayal? Like, what is he?
He was considered to be, belonging to Hindu family,
Okay.
but most of the Hindus were sympathetic towards the Sikhs. So because what was happening, and that's why their elder son used to be a Sikh, because that's what they used to do, that even though we are Hindus, we want our first son to be the Sikhs, in order to help the Sikhs, because they are for the human rights. So Akaldas, those three charges were quite strong charges. Just to, but they didn't, I don't know, it doesn't say whether he got killed or not. It doesn't say. But they simply went to his village, and what happened there is not much mention.
Like my other two questions were, like what was the role of a Kaltakat Sahib during this time? Like what was the need of a Sarbat Khalsa to make a decision on one person, or something like that? And then the second question was like,
That's a good question.
when you reflect like on this part of history, like what do you take from it?
Akal Takht Sahib was definitely managed by the Akalis, and at that time. This is not the regular Akalis. There is a Jatha, and there is one missile out of that was supposed to manage the Akal Takht Sahib.
That's where like Akali Phula
And
Singh.
the Akali Phula Singh. So he was a Jathedar of the missile, and so they used to manage the Akal Takht. So at that time, Akal Takht Sahib, in what way it was involved, I don't see an involvement at that time. The Sarbat Khalsa was the involved party at that time.
So like
And-
like nowadays, I mean, I'm totally just probably making this up, but like nowadays when we see a call to the side, it's just a couple people make a decision and then that's the word for the whole, like
Yeah.
that's supposed to be the direction for every Sikh
Yeah,
in the world. But now,
that whole thing has
but
changed.
that sounds like they're getting the information from the Sangat and then making a decision. I don't know if that's like stretching what was happening, but
That whole thing has changed actually over the years, because normally people used to get the input by many people.
Yeah, but when you say many people, you're not talking about like 100,000 people or, I mean, the whole point of a representative is that a few people can
Right.
represent a lot of people and make decisions.
Yeah.
So it's not that, I don't think it's that the problem was in the fact that there's few people making the decision, even today.
right.
The fact is, it's the wrong few people. They don't really represent the views of the Sangat in general.
Right.
Yeah, and they are not true representatives. So that's the bad part. Like even during Peshawar Singh's time, I just wanted to elaborate on that. Professor Manjeet Singh, I think, he did a very nice thing, that he has sent.
This is not streaming, right?
He has sent all his thesis, PhD thesis, to only scholars. Something went systematically. at that time.
Right.
I was just surprised why it is not happening after that, because this was a academic thesis. So he said, let us find Panthak academicians and look at the thesis and let them review it and find out what really the problem is. And then they found out the problem and gave it to the Akal Takht Sahib. And Akal Takht Sahib mentioned that these are the problems we found. Are you going to correct them or not correct them? He was also told to come to the Akal Takht, and he went. And that's the proper procedure is done. Now, as far as appointment of the Akal Takht Jathedar, that is still, that structure we are lacking. We're badly lacking.
So what would your personal view be on today? If there was a traitor to the Sikh community like Akal Das, that people generally believe was a traitor to the community.
And there's no faith the government is going to do the right thing.
Right.
I think there is the justice system. Akal Takht Sahib, if it is properly constituted, even now we have a judiciary there. Akal Takht Sahib. There are 5 judges, and they all have law degrees. And
But
they,
law for what? Which law degrees? The
which
judiciary and the Akal Takht?
You're
yes,
saying that 5 people are.
The
But
Sikh
what,
judiciary.
but of whose law do they have law degrees?
They have law degree.
Of like India's law?
Yeah, they have law degree.
But I mean, like, has there ever been a movement to define a Sikh law? I guess.
I
But like
don't-
the Sarbat Khalsa didn't use the Mughal laws to decide their justice.
No, I know,
But
but I
they
think what
didn't-
Uncle's saying is these are people with law degrees. These are people that
They're
understand the ideas,
They're
the
not
critical thinking. They
qualified.
understand. It's not that they're using the Indian law system to decide.
Okay.
It's that they're
Qualified
They-
qualified people.
But she's asking that, did they define a Sikh law?
Yeah, that,
But that's, I think overall, in general, the law of the world is very similar. Very little difference, small differences are there between the US law, or the British law, or Indian law. Some things that are just, they are just, So basically, they should have that law degree qualification. And then they should define law, not in the sense that the Shariat is defined in Muslim law. That's another, then there will be another problem. We want justice to happen to all people. It doesn't matter whether a person is Sikh or a non-Sikh.
I'm just curious though, guys, because that's the first I've ever heard of it. Did anybody else know that there was 5 people with law
What is their
degrees
role?
at Akal Takht?
Just
I
not
never heard
the
of it.
Jathedar. Had no idea there was any other structure.
What other
Other than-
structure is there? Because to us it seems like there is no structure. Badal
Well-
wants something done and his lackeys do it. that's
Yeah,
how
they
it
didn't
seems.
do much, that they were not very prominent, but many times when it comes to the local disputes, they did come into play.
But okay, so this when Peshawar Singh thing happened, I mean that's 20 years or 25 years or whatever, however long ago that is.
Yeah.
But when Professor Darshan Singh issue came up, the whole thing was like a mockery. The whole thing fell apart. Nobody analyzed any of his materials. Nobody was really.
Yeah, nobody did. That's why I quote Professor Manjeet Singh, and he was the controversial Akal Takht Jathedar also, and at the same time he was just simply an acting Jathedar, but he did a wonderful
But
thing.
he did a great job.
He is the one who took the women to the Harmandir Sahib and did Kirtan. Got the Kirtan done by the women, first time and last time. So I think so many things that he did positive.
Uncle, is there any book or resource that you know of like the structure of the Akal Takht or the way that we currently have our Jathedar system of the 5 Takhts and But do you know of any resource or something that depicts like what the rules and regulations are, or that they use to begin with? Is there any actual such documents, like, I don't want to say constitution, but some type of bylaws that exist, or do they just do whatever they want?
I think it's the unwritten law.
Unwritten.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you are disciplined, you can. If you are disciplined, even unwritten law or law of precedences will work, just like it works in America.
But that qualifier is such a big qualifier. If you are disciplined,
Yeah,
who is
I think
disciplined? In
that's the
India,
thing.
even in America, I don't think people are disciplined.
It looks, in the world only British is disciplined because they have been running for so long without a constitution. There is no constitution. It goes by precedence.
And maybe before we just stop, then can you just give your personal reflections, like when you look back at this history or these type of historical events, what impact maybe they had on your life, what impact, or just what feelings they bring?
About the Akal Takht
No,
or
Vadda
in general?
Ghalughaaraa, these Ghalughaaras, like Vadda Ghalughaaraa. Like, what do you take when you read the history? What do you take?
I think the only first thing that they bring is the faith, that they have so much faith in their gurus that they were prepared to sacrifice. That was the biggest thing that they bring to my attention. It doesn't matter whether they won or they lost, anything happened. But they had a lot of faith in the Guru Sahib. Look at the most impressive story comes to my mind is the Subek Singh's story. It's just very impressive. The person who works for the government, obeys the laws of the government, and when it comes to the examination and time examination, I think that's the most important thing.
It's just one last question, Uncle Jeet. When you say the impressive thing is they had faith in the Guru, how do you explain why have faith in the Guru when you know that your kids are going to be cut piece by piece, wrapped around your neck, things like that? Why have faith? How do you explain that to somebody?
Yeah, that's hard to explain. That's another thing. Subek Singh was told that I will take your son and temporarily convert him to Islam. And when he will become 18 years old, I will leave him at the jungle where Sikhs live. Then he will become Sikh. Why you are letting your son go? Tell him to say Kalma just once and he will be fine. This whole story is written also by Ratna Singh Pangu. Ratna Singh Pangu's contribution is fantastic. And he says, हम सुत अपने दियो उपदेशु राखन अपने निज घुर भेस. He said, I have all my life, I told my son to adopt the Guru's way, to keep the Guru's attire. Nij ghur bhes, Guru da bhes dharan karde hoye. कहना, now you are telling me to abandon that? My lifelong teaching, I cannot abandon it. So, some of the words that are written are phenomenal. They tell you that how strong these people were. And this is the person who was employee of the government. And he says, Khan Sahib, you are very generous with me. You wanted to save my child. But you know, I have, हमने तुम्हारा लून है खाया, बने न खोटा हमें अलाया. He says, I have taken your salt. That means I have earned wages from you. I have gotten wages from you. I will not tell you a lie. I won't tell you a false thing. And then he says this thing, these lines that I always do. I think ਅੱਜਕੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਭੇਸ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰੋ. This is a fantastic word that I have learned from there. ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਭੇਸ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰੋ. We didn't say ਕੇਸ ਰੱਖੋ, ਦਸਤਾਰ ਸਜਾਓ, ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਨਹੀਂ. ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਭੇਸ ਧਾਰਨ ਕਰੋ. It's just amazing. ਇੱਕ ਲਾਈਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਜਾਓਗੇ ਨਾ, if you understand Hindustani, and then it's in simple Hindi words and very nice words.
Where can we find that?
है ना?
You can find that?
रतन सिंह पंगुज प्राचीन पंथ प्रकाश.
Oh, okay.
I can provide you that.
I have it at home, and it has the Punjabi on one side, English on the other side. So for people that want to read it in English too, they can see. I mean, it's poetry, so
It's
naturally reading it in Punjabi is going to have a different effect. But since it's not like Gurbani, it's just history, it's hard to understand what that history is being told in that poetry. Like, for me, when I try to read the Punjabi side, and there's just some mention of a general. In the English side, they tell you which general he's talking about, and you see, so it's more of an explanation, not just a translation, but explanation of all of it. So that I found helpful myself for the retreat, just whatever. If we're going to do like a group month or what Khalsa theme next year, Khalsa bylaws is a great idea as a workshop.
Yeah.
How do they know
Or no,
what
just,
they
we'll make
How
it.
do
We'll do a workshop where here we have to create bylaws for a Khalsa. We've been assigned to do
I think,
creating bylaws.
yeah.
As an exercise,
No,
and
it's
then there's
cool.
like some kind of assumption.
I think if we create it and make a ready-made thing and give it to them,
You can submit it to them.
someday somebody will accept it.
That's-
You know, it may not be recently, like Paul Singh. Matlab, he has created. He didn't care. He created the calendar, and he went there, and at least it is the talk of the people, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it got implemented. It was even adopted at one time, and then discarded, amended, but still, it's in the works.
I think that's pretty awesome. And Uncle G's able, like he's one of those, like he has the connections. At least we can send it. That's something for the retreaters also to know. Like this is
We
something
can
that
actually
went.
get this to a Khalsa
Whether
and
they-
have somebody look at it,
Right.
whether they like it or not. But that gives a sense that we can actually accomplish something with that retreat.
बस साढ़े ਜਿਹੜੇ कुछ बंदे law पढ़े हुए हैं, those people who have law degrees, they should make this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be inspired, right? We need the inspiration, so when we have these kinds of gatherings, that we can be
Oh, yeah.
Anything else, Uncle Ji?
Thank you.
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ, well
Thanks
then,
very much.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ